The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right, good morning. Welcome in. A little bit of a late start. Our apologies, but we are off and rolling here on a Tuesday. Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here on this beautiful Tuesday morning. Gentlemen, good morning. How are all of we today?
Good morning. I'm good.
I'm ready to roll.
That's right.
I was ready to roll nice and early this morning.
Were you? I'm a little, I'm a little late today. I'm the reason we're starting late. No, I'm not hungover, as everyone will probably say, but a little accident that I ran into on the highway on the way here.
Listen, as somebody who deals with a lot of those on my way to work here in
I've
Hamilton.
never heard about that.
I've never said anything about it. I try to keep that humble. But I'm very sympathetic to your cause. I am.
New polo alert, by the way. Or
No, this is an old one.
It's an old one.
This is an old one.
Oh, it's usually Buckeyes or Alabama.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
That's the majority of my closet. So if you're just playing the numbers,
Breaking out the green today.
You can
I
bet
like
on
it.
one of those. But breaking out the green.
Looks good.
Thank you. Appreciate
Casey has the two shades of blue, but this time they offset, so it goes well together. But FC from head to toe. Good morning, Casey.
Good morning. They play a game today. I don't know if you guys
Who
knew
knew?
that. They play against
I
Philadelphia Union. Aren't you excited?
Isn't
Ready
that
to roll?
the team that beat them in the championship or something?
No, that was they did like 2 years ago.
Yes.
But we already got our revenge against them in the same game.
They did.
Yeah.
Look at that. Look at my wealth of FCC knowledge.
You know ball.
Look at
Yeah.
that.
You know ball. You know footy.
That's right.
Liquid over there.
Kickball knowledge.
So who's the team they're playing today? You say Philadelphia Union. So are they going to play their starters?
At this point in the tournament, I think most of the teams are starting to play. They're going to play their starters at some point, I would imagine.
Okay, at some point.
We just don't know when.
We just don't
It
know
isn't
when.
that fun as fans.
I hope they play it from the I hope they play it from the beginning.
Me too.
I mean,
That would be
preseason,
nice.
I said yesterday how much I love preseason football. And if I love preseason football, I should just watch all of the MLS.
That's 100% true.
preseason football?
That's right.
Football.
That's right. But all season.
All year long.
All year long.
It's
It's just
preseason.
not true. It's just not true.
Joe Burrow has about as good a chance of playing for FC Cincinnati as he does the Bengals during the preseason.
As do the FC Cincinnati starters.
Who's better, Acosta or Burrow?
Embrace debate.
Oh, let's go with Burrow.
I will refrain from comment on this.
You don't have to.
Wait, is Costa better than Burrow
No.
at his particular sport?
That was the debate.
If
that was the debate on Twitter. It was.
There's a debate on Twitter?
Oh yeah, there was.
Well, the 6 or 7 FCC fans were really worked up about it.
That's called ratio,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like if you pick Burrow.
If you go percentages of the fan base, it's Acosta wins.
But you know me,
if
I'm
you
a
go
homer.
pure numbers. We're not electoral college here. Yeah.
I'm a homer. I pick Burrow for everything. You know me.
Yeah.
Burrow this, Burrow that. I just can't help myself.
That's why they call you the Bengal boy.
Exactly. I lead the charge. We got a lot to dive into today. Got some college football stuff around the corner. The AP 25 or top 25 came out. It was interesting finding a graphic that showed the very first AP top 25 poll. And I'm going to have Jacob guess some of the teams that were on that very first AP top 25 poll coming up in a bit. Solomon Wilcots, former Cincinnati Bengal. He's going to join us here in about an hour. We'll talk all things Bengals with him. Of course, he played his college days at Colorado, so we might ask him a Dion question or two. So we have that coming up around the corner as well. But I'm going to veer away. I know we said we're going to talk Bengals to open up. Or no, I said Reds. Yeah, Reds. See, so hungover. Can't keep up with my own rundown that I made today. But we were at the Reds game last night, and the thing I always get nervous about going to a Reds game is I can't remember the last time I went to a Reds game and was like, man, that was a fun game to go to. There were a lot of runs that were scored. A lot of big players stepped up, made big plays, and we saw a lot of big plays last night as the Cincinnati Reds take care of business game 1 against the Cardinals 6-1. The Reds are back, right? Is that how this works? We overreact to what we see in person. But we saw a lot of cool things in person last night. Spencer Steer, leadoff hitter, second baseman, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, fantastic performance. Elly getting it done at the plate and on the field as well defensively. was a fun game last night. Fun night at the ballpark.
Yeah, that's right. When you play a player at their natural position, great things happen.
That's
And,
right.
You know, no one in the world was second guessing David Bell playing Spencer Steer at second last night. Was the obvious choice. I mean, Santiago Espinal, what's a 500 batting average? I mean, when
Doesn't
it's
matter
another
to me.
guy's natural position,
Doesn't
you
matter
play
to
him
me.
there and you lead
Yeah.
him off. And what a game by Steer. You love to see it. And it seems like every game where the critiques are the loudest about the lineup, the team wins.
Every single time.
Every single time.
The Spencer Steer was born to play that position. He was born to be a leadoff hitter. David Bell knew that. You know, you look at some of the other managers in the league, and they've never been on an all-star team. David Bell has been, and he led the National League win this year.
I don't think so.
I really don't know.
No, because Hunter got the loss.
Oh yeah, so David Bell led them to a loss, but that's okay. He fought hard. And that's all that really matters.
And what's baseball season about?
It's about the friends you make along the way.
That's right.
And you can't. What better friends to make than the All-Star team? So
Right.
That's what
They're
David Bell
literally
did.
all-stars.
That's correct. And he knew that when he put Spencer Steer at the leadoff position and at second base yesterday. Thank you for the tickets. It was very cool up there. We got to talk to your good friend Tommy Thrall. He was looking for you, and you weren't there, but he was looking
Shocker.
for you.
I have a habit of being late to everything lately. I got to get this drinking problem under control so I can start being on time with things, guys.
Yeah, waiting on those Ubers is starting to add up.
I am running out of excuses, too. But I think our pizza's here, by the way.
That's right.
Oh, nice.
That's good. No hot dogs.
Hot
though.
dog, no mustard, no ketchup.
Should I tell the hot
just
dog
plain.
story? I'll
tell the
it.
hot dog story.
So Kenner texted us, "Hey guys, you're gonna get free food and drink at the section whenever you guys want to come tonight. It's gonna be fun." We're like, okay, we'll go. So we go to the box. Seats are phenomenal. We had to go through about 4 different levels of security clearance to get back to our suite.
You can go to the White House now. You can go to the White
We had a
House now.
lanyard and
Yeah.
everything. It was very neat. It's probably like I haven't been to 2 places in the ballpark, and right where we were is the places I haven't been. So we get back there. We get ushered back by a security guard, a nice little guy, and he basically is like our babysitter. We're not allowed to leave the box. You're not allowed to without his say-so.
I had to use the restroom at one point, and he had to walk me there.
Yeah, it's just the security. You can't go loose when there's a
Very
bunch
tough
of
to fit 2 people in a stall, too. It gets really
No,
weird.
he didn't let me out of his sight.
a bunch of broadcasting teams right by us. We got a bunch of security. So we get in there, no food. There was 1 box of pizza, 1 pizza box, potato salad,
wet brownies,
and then wet brownies. If you don't know what a wet brownie is, it's basically a regular brownie that's soaked and wet. And that's what it is. It was a sopping wet brownie.
Elliot has a fundamental misunderstanding of caramel.
Well, I didn't know it was a caramel brownie until I picked it up, and then I saw it oozing out of the brownie. And I don't like my brownies oozing, so you could.
It's caramel.
Yeah, but it was oozing, and I didn't like it when it was.
What does
oozing.
James Madison think about oozing brownies?
I don't like the ooze. I don't like the ooze one bit. And so we were anyway. We get there. I go to the little pans. If you ever been to a suite in a Bengals game or a Reds game or anywhere, they got all the food in the nice little warm pans. I go to the pans. No food. None. 0 whatsoever. So I'm like, all right. I talked to the security guy that's guarding us so we can't leave the thing because I can't leave without his say-so. So I'm like, hey, what do I got to pay you to go get me a hot dog? And he looks at me. He's like, all right, I'll just go get you one. We'll see if they've got a free hot dog in the cafeteria. No free hot dogs. They stopped serving food around the 2nd inning, I guess.
Cowboy ate them all.
Cowboy ate them all. So I'm like, all right, can you go down to the concession area and just get me a hot dog? He's like, sure. I'm like, so all right. So I'm just going to give you a 20, and I'm going to tip you the rest because I'm a nice guy. So he comes back up, he brings me my hot dog, and then he says, "Oh, I forgot to say there's no cash at the ballpark, so I had to use my own card." And then I sat there like, "I still gave you enough money, right? With $20?" He's like, "Yeah, but it was an inconvenience for me."
He's just letting you know.
So I was just but it was a fun time. Other than that, it was a great time.
I mean, no one made him use his card.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, and he works there all the time. He should have known that it's a cashless ballpark.
Yeah, you could have told me, and I should have known because I
You
go
were
there a lot.
bullied by the box security officer.
I was. He alphaed me. He put me in a corner and he alphaed
He
me.
didn't beta you. He
Then you told him you loved him.
And then I told him I loved him because he went and got me a hot dog.
But a great night at the ballpark, no doubt. The Reds get a big win. You came this close to winning $500 hairs, correct?
We
But
had a
you did
great
not.
night anyway.
He doesn't even know that.
Oh, we had a great night.
So I took 5 things in a parlay: Reds money line, the over, Elly 4 bases, Goldschmidt 2 bases, and I'm forgetting the last leg.
First inning tie.
First inning tie. So I parlayed all of that, 5 to win like 490 or something like that. And it came down to the over-under, which unfortunately went under, and I had the over, so I lost it. Ty France hit a ball almost out of the park. He missed it by an inch. So I lost that. But Jacob looked at me yesterday and said, you know what? I'm going to parlay Elly De La Cruz and Shohei Ohtani to hit home runs. Elly De La Cruz hit the home run, as I'm sure we'll talk about later. He hit a home run in the back-to-back home runs with Spencer Steer. And they're like, okay, this is looking pretty good. Shohei, they play at 8:30 We'll see it then. I doubt it hits. But it's fun to have this. I think the cash out at one point was $50. We put $11 and something on it.
$11.63, my new unit.
$11.64. And so I was on the drive home, and I start getting notifications. And I didn't look at them because I was driving, because it's against the law in Ohio. Please don't use your phones when you're driving in Ohio. Against the law. Bad. So I get home, and I see all these texts and calls, and I'm like, what the hell happened? And Shohei Ohtani, sure enough, hit a home run to cash
he
the
did?
parlay. So Shohei and the Elly parlay cashed. Unbelievable hit by Jacob.
I
Phenomenal.
was so drunk, I don't even remember that. Like,
Yeah,
what,
when
what
we
a
left
wild
the
night.
ballpark, Shohei was 0 for 2 or 0
yeah.
for 3. So we were kind of in the sorrows. I talked Elliot out of cashing out.
I was going to cash
He
it
was
out.
a little upset.
So wait, you won how much?
like
200.
a little over 200.
Oh, that's still a great night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was phenomenal.
Great night.
Pays for home run bets for the rest of the month.
That's right.
And you know, pay that guy to go get you a couple more hot dogs.
That's right.
That's
you know,
right.
at the end
Based
of
on
the
that
day.
logic, I'd only get like 4.
All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. We'll get to some Bengals stuff coming up around the corner. Unfortunately, an injury for a guy that Jacob and a lot of Bengals fans have a lot of optimism for, not just his role this upcoming season, but long-term. We'll talk about that. Solomon Wilcots, former Bengal, joins us coming up here shortly as well. So the Cincinnati Reds come away with a 6-1 win last night against the Cardinals. I'm not sure where we're at time-wise. I think probably
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Well, we'll step away for a second, come back, recap just the significance of that Reds win last night, and go into some Bengals stuff with Jacob with his Bengals camp report. We'll get to all of that coming up. More Off the Bench next. All right, it got me thinking. You said it's a cashless ballpark, right? Cashless ballpark at Great American Ballpark. Like everything, it's kind of common now for everything to be cashless, right? What I can't stand still in 2024 when we go to any kind of concert or whatever, anytime that there's a parking lot, or like so in Dayton for the Dragons, pretty much everything around the ballpark is, you have to have cash to get into these lots.
Yeah.
And that drives me nuts still. After all this we can't figure that out at this point in time. Now, shame on me. I should have known better. But at the same time, we are conditioned now to cash is bad, all right, to get rid of your cash. And then to have no other option downtown except to have cash to park is kind of wild. I do not like that. I'm not a fan of that.
I don't pay with cash when I park downtown. I go the three places I go don't have cash. I don't even think they take cash, I'm going to be honest. I park by the public landing, which is right by that river area.
Yep.
I park in the garage right across the street from it, also card. And then I park it's the one right across from the Bengals stadium, that little lot there.
Yep.
I think that's card as well. So my 3 lots, card.
So last night was fine. That was card. But I just like in Dayton, it just made me think of that because we went to a Dragons game last week and I was pissed because we had no cash and we had to park like a mile away. Not that my fat ass, couldn't use a good walk, but
Are you saying Dayton hasn't advanced enough to have cards?
I guess not.
That's
It's a great
sad.
city. It's a great city, but some of the lots.
my favorite
around,
city.
I'm sure a lot of the
is.
lots around the
What are we laughing
ballpark,
about?
man.
Not really.
It is.
You have like 5 favorite cities.
I do. Maybe more.
By the
And
way,
Dayton's one of them.
I know. I'm driving from Dayton to go to Cincinnati for any event or whatever. I always take the Freeman exit, and it goes against what your GPS always tells you. It tells you to go park in the red basically for 5 minutes and inch through just to finally get off the exit to go park. I don't know why people don't take that dang Freeman exit. It literally brings you around Paycor, that parking lot you're talking about that's right across from Paycor. And
Yeah.
I think that's, what's that music venue, Icon. I don't know if it's called Icon anymore, but that lot right there, like literally you get off Freeman exit, you just wrap all the way around. There's never any traffic.
Yep.
When I left the ballpark last night, everyone is taking a right to go and try to go through downtown to get to 75. Everyone's backed up. I took the same way around to go back to that Freeman exit, and I didn't even stop once. I stopped once at a red light and then just kept going on through. I mean, I was home in literally 46 minutes. That's unheard of from Cincinnati to Dayton. So I don't know why people don't take that Freeman exit more, at least for our Dayton people coming from Dayton to Cincinnati.
I was going to say, I take Marion Way. I take Marion Way coming from my house. But I think I took the Freeman exit not too long ago, and it's never busy. So
there you go. There's your
magic
tip for the
it's
day.
magic.
Yep.
But the Reds got to win.
Speaking of magic, David Bell's lineup last
That's
night.
right.
That was magic.
I don't pay attention to the lineups anymore. I really don't care that much because every time I criticize it, they go off, as Jacob liked to say, and he's right. It happened. It's
Not
happened
just
like,
you. Not just you.
No, yeah, I know, but
Whenever
it's
it's the loudest on Twitter is when you know to take Reds money line.
Spencer Steer playing second, Spencer Steer leading off. It's going to be bad.
Elly getting a rest day for the first time in 2.5 months. Oh,
Right.
that was me. That was me.
The crazy thing is, those people weren't wrong.
No.
And everyone likes, as soon as the Reds win 6-1, and obviously it was a great game, Spencer Steer played phenomenally. But those people that were mad about the lineup before the game weren't automatically wrong. Santiago Espinal's hitting 500 in the last 15 games. He should have been playing.
Yeah.
But he didn't, and it worked out, so it's fine.
It's fine. Good for the Reds. I thought they were going to make up a half. They almost made up a half game last night. Almost. The Braves won a game in the 10th inning, and they won it 1-0. But it was almost a productive night.
Almost. I liked last
All
night
teams
for
in the
one.
division lost, I think.
You know, it's one thing too to do that against
Yeah.
to do that against Sonny Gray. I wasn't expecting that in Game 1 against the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know Game 1s are the Reds' thing, but Sonny Gray on the mound, I was not expecting them to kind of hit him as hard as they did, and they got contributions all up and down that lineup.
0-3 against the Reds now since he lost, I believe, or since he left, I believe.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I remember that stat yesterday, but it was like I think it needs to be verified because it's almost too hard to believe that that's possible. But nonetheless, yeah, the Reds look good. The Reds look good defensively, offensively. They look good everywhere. Outside of a silly Elly error, which should have been ruled out, and it should not have been an error. Outside of that, look good. Good for the Reds. I think if they were able to win this series, if they're just able to beat, not the Brewers, we know they're going to lose to the Brewers, but everybody else, if you can beat the teams right ahead of you in the wild card race, they're still in it. They're still not dead.
That's true.
I'm not going to be happy. I'm not jumping for joy every night thinking the Reds have a chance at the playoffs, but it is mathematically possible. You need the bottom half of the lineup to be better. I know I keep saying that, but it's no offense to Will Benson, Noelvi Marte. It's just not. I mean, they're not productive. So you're not going to get any help whatsoever from those two guys right now at this very second. I don't know what the move would be because, again, who are you bringing up to replace him? I'd argue you could maybe bring up Rhys Hines to replace Will Benson at some point. If Will Benson's going to continue to hit below 200, I don't understand why not at least try the guy who left the team hitting 300. I know all the strikeout numbers. I know everything like that. And guess what? If Rhys Hines doesn't work out, you can bring back Will Benson after a week or two and see if that helped Will. But at the same time, Noelvi Marte, Will Benson, I'm getting nothing from those two guys. And something's going to need to change, hopefully before the end of the year, where I don't have to keep watching it.
Well, the one thing we always forget about, too, because we always talk about the trade deadline, right? But, the waiver wire, that's going to play a role coming up, too. This is where the Reds, they didn't do much at the trade deadline last year, but then they made a couple additions, when teams start cutting a bunch of guys coming up here soon. I mean, that's another little tiny portion that the Reds could try to be aggressive at, whatever that means, as far as that's concerned. All right, so the Cincinnati Reds, their schedule coming up, as we talked about. So, Game 2 tonight against the Cardinals, JBP. That's a 6:40 first pitch. Hunter Greene on the mound for that one, looking to take the series against the Cardinals. Have a chance for the sweep tomorrow night if they can, of course, get through this game tonight. But then they have Kansas City and they have Toronto. Those are their next couple series coming up. Kansas City, team above 500. They're third in their division. And then Toronto, a winnable series there. What's the chances that Joey Votto's called up and has a chance to play against his former team?
Non-zero.
I would say it's
Non-zero.
high. I think it might be higher just because they're going to do it against the Reds.
Right,
If
yeah.
it wasn't the Reds, I'd say maybe 0. But the fact that he is going to be playing against the Cincinnati Reds, there's a strong chance he's going to be brought up.
If he's not up for this series, I don't think we see him this year. I think this
agree.
is a minor league. He's
Yep.
probably done after this year. I think this is his chance to get up and
Is
have
that
it.
series? No, it's at Toronto.
Right.
So I didn't know if it was in Cincinnati. No, it's at Toronto. And then after that, they got 4 with Pittsburgh and then the A's. Actually, this is a weird little window coming up. Kansas City is the best team that they have on the schedule coming in.
Play a
But
lot of
that-
games against the teams ahead of you in the wild card standings for the rest of this year. So
Yep.
if you want to make up the ground, you have the ability to do it.
All right. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Give the show a like, por favor. I know that Casey will jump on that coming up here in a little bit as well with the housekeeping items, but just make sure you're giving the show a like on Facebook. This isn't about liking me. It's about liking the show. You like these guys, so make sure you give them a like as far as that's concerned. There you go. All right. How much time? We got time to jump into the Bengals?
6 minutes.
6 minutes. Let's do a Bengals camp update.
All right.
Bengals camp update.
Yeah.
Jacob, I know yesterday good. It was a silent camp yesterday until it wasn't. A big injury for a guy that was coming off of a good performance in that first preseason game for the Bengals. The first round draft pick in Amarius Mims, of course, wasn't just drafted to help the Bengals this upcoming season, and actually it looks like he was going to have a bigger role than they had anticipated this upcoming season. But obviously a guy that they're looking to be one of the mainstays on that offensive line for years to come. Unfortunately, it's not a season-ending injury like some teams are experiencing with some of their top players around the league right now, but still a huge setback because this is a guy that the question mark coming in was the amount of experience or the amount of games that he's been out there for and injuries, this, that, and the other. Looks good, looks solid, checking off all the boxes. A setback here, several weeks. Several was overemphasized by Zach Taylor. Amarius Mims out for several weeks at least for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, that's right. First-round pick, Amarius Mims, strained his pec in practice yesterday. He's expected to miss several weeks. Zach Taylor was very clear to give the definition of several as well. So
Yep.
more than two and less than many. So take that what you will, I guess. I would expect him to be back by week 1. I think this kind of sends out the window the idea of him starting to start the season, though. I would assume that that's Trent Brown's job now because he'll be here in that number 1 role for the rest of camp, getting all those reps, gelling with the O-line, and that's more than fine. That was the plan for this team anyway, so I think the coaches and the offense are very comfortable with Trent Brown and Orlando Brown as the tackles going in, and Mims getting some time to fully recover from this injury, assuming that those two can stay out there as the backup, as the third tackle. And then maybe if he, can get healthy and come back and tear up practice when he's healthy in the middle of the season, he can steal that job back. But I think this kind of cements the idea that many had during the draft that Amarius Mims was going to have his first rookie season on the bench.
Yeah, and again, Casey, I know you were heartbroken yesterday, but no, the Mims news, of course, that came out after our show at the beginning of their camp yesterday, at the beginning of their practice yesterday. Obviously, not the worst news. I mean, it's not like it's a season-ending injury, but not the news you wanted to hear, especially with so much optimism and hope for his contributions this season.
Yeah, I was disappointed, to say the least. There was some things you could take away from what they said about Mims, just kind of alluding to the fact that, Zach said it himself. He was doing everything he can to become an impact player right away, which makes it feel like he was trending in the direction of being a starter. I think that the idea, the notion of us saying that he was not some sort of project was correct. This is an unfortunate and minor setback, and that's basically what Zach said. It was just a minor setback for him. I think that ruling him out as the starter is a little too I don't know, a little too early to tell, I would say, or it's too soon to tell, especially with Trent Brown and how we've already said before that this is the first time he's had even team drills, and there's only a few 3 or 4 weeks left until we start playing regular season games. So this whole time he hasn't been practicing with the team, doing team drills, things like that. So I'm not going to rule out Mims coming back and starting yet. I'm not going to do that yet. I think he showed a lot of great potential, and Zach said it himself. Minor setback.
Minor setback. What is the vibe, though, with Trent Brown?
Yeah, I think I think the complaints with Trent Brown are wondering how much of a team player he is, but
He just seems off. I know Zach's been very good with the culture thing. I just
Yeah.
don't know if I'm going to say he's bad for the culture. He just seems
I think
like,
he's an all-pro level player who's on a 1-year deal trying to get a big contract next year, and I think that's completely fine because the better Trent Brown plays, the better the Bengals play. So it's easy for people to point to him and say, when he says he doesn't want to go out during the preseason, when he said he doesn't need to be here for camp, and you say that's a selfish player or whatever, and that's not necessarily wrong. Maybe he is. Maybe he is just focused on his own personal gain, but that'll help the Bengals along the way. So I think a lot of the complaints about Trent Brown are relying on Amarius Mims being healthy for week 1. 1. And like you said with Trent Brown missing camp so far, not having those reps is crucial. And Mims missing the next 3 or 4 weeks going into camp, I think, is what's going to knock him out of that week 1 rotation. But, yeah, I think people often forget with Trent Brown when you look at him and he doesn't necessarily look like the best football player. He doesn't have, defined arms or a six-pack or, a lot of muscle like that. He's a huge dude, and he looks every bit of, 370 pounds or whatever Frank Pollock said yesterday. But he's been a great player in this league for a long time. And he, whether it's Mims or Trent Brown at right tackle, this is the best tackle duo the Bengals have had in a long, long time.
Yeah, to be very clear, I have all the confidence that Trent Brown is going to be a solid player for this team. I just think Amarius Mims is that good, is what I'm getting at. I think that he's a great player at the moment, and that's why I have so much confidence in him potentially coming back and starting. It depends on how you look at it. I mean, the optics of it clearly would suggest that he's probably not going to start, but I wouldn't say it's 0% chance that he starts. I think there's a slim chance. So, yeah, I have every bit of confidence in this offensive line in terms of the tackle depth right now in the room. It does seem like Trent Brown and Amarius Mims on that right side, you couldn't have asked for a better situation, especially now that Amarius Mims did go down. Like, could you imagine if we didn't sign Trent Brown late in free agency? We'd be panicking right now with Jackson Carman potentially being the starter for the remainder of the preseason and then potentially going into the season. Yeah, that would have been an absolute disaster. So good on the Bengals.
Both of those guys are injury prone, no?
Who?
Like,
Mims
I feel
and Brown?
Trent Brown and Amarius Mims.
Yeah, no, they
Yeah,
absolutely are.
yeah.
And that's why I think pairing them together, you need Trent Brown to stay healthy for several weeks or whatever
Yep.
that definition Zach Taylor gave. And then Mims will be healthy. And then if Trent Brown goes down, it doesn't even matter. So I think those two are going to work well together to kind of lighten the load of worrying about one of them getting hurt.
The other question I have too, and this isn't a Bengals-centered thing. This is how all teams operate this way. Several weeks, they emphasize several weeks, but like this isn't just a Mims thing. Like if you look at how the Bengals have handled how they've reported updates on injuries, it hasn't always been the most forthcoming. So it's like, do you trust your team when they come out and say, "Oh yeah, just minor setback, several weeks"? We saw this last year with Joe Burrow. It sounded like he was so close, then you'd see him out there and he was not close. I'm not attacking the Bengals. The Browns do this. All the teams I follow do this. Like they're never, you never trust when they give true health updates on these guys. They don't want to make anyone panic. But do you trust that this is just a minor setback as far as that's concerned?
So I get what you're saying. I do think it's a little different when it's your franchise quarterback that's trying to play every game and is out there every game, and it's your calf, and you can't get off your calf, and you have to run with your calf, whereas Mims isn't forced to play at the moment. He's not practicing. He's actually going to be letting it rest. And it's a pectoral. It's something that he's not going to be on all day, every day. You know what I mean? So that being said, I think the two injuries are different. I understand the hesitation with the franchise and their reporting and saying how the injuries are progressing and things of that nature. But because of the nature of this injury, I think you can trust what Zach has to say on this one. I think it was a little different with Burrow because they were screwed if they didn't play Burrow. If Burrow wanted to be out there, he was probably going to be out there anyways, even if he was 80%, and we saw that. So I think that's where that part of the miscommunication was last year with the franchise, but this is different in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely am worried about it, and I don't believe the reports at all that it's just a temporary setback. This is a guy that since the moment we drafted him, I've been worried about little injuries adding up along the way. I don't think I've ever really been worried about an ACL or a shoulder or something that is a massive thing that maybe he can't control that keeps him out for a whole season. I'm worried about the back issues that kept him out for 2 games at a time at Georgia, and now this a pec strain which can linger, and maybe he rolls an ankle and that'll linger. I'm worried with him for his career about the 2-3 game injuries and how those will add up in a whole season. So this definitely does terrify me because this is the exact type of thing that I was worried about with Amarius Mims. I didn't think his technique was an issue. I didn't think his body needed work. I thought he was ready to go at the NFL level, except for if these little injuries piled up throughout the weeks and added up, and he ended up missing 8 games for 3 different injuries or something like that. That was where my worry lied with Amarius Mims, and it seems to be coming a little bit true already.
All right, we'll talk more about. Oh, do you have something, Casey, to close out?
Go ahead.
We'll talk more about the significance of this. Amarius Mims again out several weeks, according to the update from the Cincinnati Bengals, of a pec injury coming out of that first preseason game for the Bengals against the Bucs over the weekend. But we'll talk more about that coming up with Solomon Wilcots, former Bengal, coming up here in just about 20 minutes or so when he calls into the show. All right, we'll step away for a bit. When we come back, of course, more than just Reds and more than just Bengals, we'll get full Elliot's headlines when we return. All right, welcome back. Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here on a Tuesday. We'll be joined by Solomon Wilcots, former Bengal, coming up here in just a few moments. But let's get caught up with what happened around the rest of the world of sports. We got Elliot's headlines.
Ooh.
Elliot loves 3 things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
Yes. The Reds win 6-1. Final score last night against the Cardinals. Andrew Abbott dominant. 6 2/3 innings, allowing 5 hits, 1 earned run, striking out 6. I was concerned about Andrew Abbott, the tapering off as the season goes on. Strong performance last night against the division rival in a game, quite frankly, they have to win. So good for Andrew Abbott. Good to see him back on top. Jakob Junis carried the Reds the rest of the way home. 2 1/3. Striking out 3 and not allowing a base runner. He looked solid last night with 3 strikeouts again as well. Former Red Sonny Gray, as we mentioned earlier, tough go, 5 innings, 5 hits, 6 earned runs. He did manage to strike out 9 Reds. So he did strike out quite a bit of Cincinnati Reds players, but that's all right. Spencer Steer, 2 for 3 with a walk, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, and a stolen base in his return to second base. Hitting leadoff. Elly De La Cruz went 2 for 4 with a double and a home run. The Reds are back at it tonight, where it is All Star Hunter Greene taking on Erick Fedde. Greene enters this game with a 2.9 ERA, an 8-4 record, 154 strikeouts, and a 1.03 WHIP. Erick Fedde is 8-5 with a 3.2 ERA, 118 strikeouts, and a 1.15 WHIP. Hopefully, God willing, they win this series tonight, so I don't have to worry about a Wednesday game. Now, the Wednesday game is not a day game, so that makes me feel a little bit better about it if they were to lose this. But nonetheless, when it's your best pitcher on the mound, you expect to win, and that's what I expected them to do tonight. Around the league, as I mentioned, the Braves shut out the Giants 1-0 in extra innings, so it was 0-0 heading into the 10th. Chris Sale threw 7 shutout innings with 12 strikeouts, while Blake Snell went 6 1/3, not allowing a run, and striking out 11. Absolutely incredible pitching performance there. The Padres, they hang on to beat the Pirates 2-1. They just finished a sweep of the Pirates not a week ago, a little less than a week ago, and they hope to, and I hope they do, sweep them again. The Pirates also have lost 8 games in a row. They're done. See you later, Pirates. The Diamondbacks beat the Rockies 5-4 on back-to-back wild pitches. Tough scenes for Colorado. The White Sox get their largest win of the season, destroying the Yankees 12-2. It's their first win under their new manager, Grady Sizemore. Shout out to the Yankees. If any fan base, I'm sure, is happy about being the only team to lose by double digits to the White Sox, it's the New York Yankees. Dodgers take care of the Brew Crew 5-2. Shohei Ohtani and Mookie Betts both go yard. It was Mookie's return, but the Shohei home run was significant to some.
It was.
Very significant. The Cubs fall to the Guardians in a back-and-forth game, 9-8. Happen PCA homer for the Cubs, while Kwan and Noel hit a combined 3 home runs for the Guardians. Noel hit 2 of them. NFL news, it is feared that Jahmyr Gibbs has possibly torn his ACL. He was being evaluated for a leg injury after departing from practice early. It is listed as a hamstring injury, but we don't know what that is yet. If Jahmyr Gibbs is out, that's brutal.
Yeah, that would really stink. He had a great year last year. I expected him to take another major step this year and be one of the best running backs in the league. So it would be a real shame if he was hurt. An interesting note about that, there were no reports from Detroit local media at camp that he even left practice until after practice when they said he left practice. So it had to have happened very late in practice if it was, and that's the only thing. And maybe it's just optimistic thinking for a guy who's a big fan of Jahmyr and has him on a dynasty team, but maybe it's just optimistic thinking. But you'd think if it's ACL or MCL or something big like that, he would have at least been, carted off or a big ordeal around the injury that would have been noticed in a more timely manner. So I'm holding on to a lot of hope there that he's just going to be all right. Hopefully it's just a hamstring that he can get healthy by week 1 or at least early in the season.
Yeah, he's one of the most exciting running backs in the league.
For sure.
And as somebody who wants to draft him in fantasy, I'd like him to be available. Hassan Reddick has requested a trade from the Jets, to which they promptly denied that trade request, and they came out. But Hassan Reddick, he just likes to be traded.
Fun nugget about this little dilemma with the Jets. If he doesn't sign the contract and he holds out all year, he'll be fined against his contract for every game in practice he misses the entire year. And the Jets will keep his rights on the last year of his contract for next season.
Really?
So he'll hold out for nothing.
Yeah, that's brutal. How much money can he lose this season?
A lot. Most of his contract.
Yeah, that's disgusting.
And then he would just have to play under the same contract next year, or maybe
not
they
play.
Maybe
Or not
they
play
trade,
under the same contract.
or keep getting fined, which I just don't know how that's a sustainable method.
Yeah, somebody's got to tell him, hey, buddy, why don't you just play?
You
a
gotta
little
just
bit?
play the football.
Play the football.
It's like $7 million.
This was a fun nugget Jacob told me about. Will Levis has partnered with mayonnaise,
That's
which
right.
could also be a perfume.
It is a perfume.
So it's a perfume.
On hellmansmayonnaise.com.
That's real. It's not like a
No, it's real. $8. It's sold out, but it's real.
$8. That's what every middle school locker room is going to smell like, and high school locker room is going to smell
Yeah, he's
like.
about an $8 quarterback. So
Yeah.
good for Will Levis. Dolphins, they let go of Tierre Tart. Bengals,
Loved Tierre Tart when he came in for a visit over the summer. He's a true nose tackle, and ever since DJ Reader left, that's something the Bengals definitely need. There's really only 2 on the roster, 1 if you don't consider Jay Tufele a nose guard. And I think Tierre Tart would be a good piece for the interior D-line.
Yeah.
The depth was an issue in preseason game 1, and with him back in the free agent market, I think it's definitely something the Bengals should kick the tires on again.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's not going to work out with him and they end up letting him go, at least you had bodies there, right? So I'm all about Tierre Tart. Reed and I covered Tierre Tart months ago during free agency. He was high on our list of guys that we wanted to bring in. He actually came for a visit, if you guys don't remember that. He left without a contract, but now that he's not with the team, maybe he's desperate. So come on down, Tierre Tart.
Don't give him the same offer, though.
Yeah,
No.
don't give him that same
Don't give
offer.
him the same offer. He turned it down once, you get a little less.
Amarius Mims we already touched on, and finally Chase Claypool. He has been placed on the injured reserve as well.
I think we're better about 6 years from when he said he was a top 3 receiver in the league.
Top tier
So-
wide receiver. My personal favorite memory of Chase Claypool is when, with the time running down, him getting I forget which team, Vikings maybe, got a first down and did a little celebration, was enjoying it, taking some pictures, selfies, and then the clock was running out, and they almost lost the game
That's
just
right.
because of that alone.
Who was it on the Bengals that just absolutely lit him up at midfield? Was that?
That was
Juju.
That was Von Bell and Juju.
They lit up Juju.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't him, but either way, they all deserved it. So
Yeah.
it didn't
Yeah,
matter.
that's right.
It didn't matter. But
Chase
yeah.
Chase Claypool, notorious good guy. Fun fact, I got a fun fact about Chase Claypool. I have a friend, he went to Notre Dame, and when Chase Claypool was there, I believe my friend was sitting on a curb, I think outside of a bar. They were just talking outside of a curb. Chase Claypool walked over him. Just stepped right over him.
Oh.
Walked over Jimmy?
Well, no, it was not Jimmy. It was another friend. But it was just like, could I go left? Could I go right? Oh, I'll just go right over.
Chase Claypool, bad wide receiver, one of the best nicknames in football.
Which is...
The Maple Mamba.
Is that real?
Yeah.
Mamba.
That can't be real.
Yeah, he's from Canada.
All right. Good for him.
And Mapletron got mixed in there as well.
Mapletron?
Yeah, Megatron, but Maple.
I think the Honey Badger is still the best nickname in football
That
history.
is good. Yeah.
Juju Smith-Schuster also getting let go by the Patriots.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all
Fall
these,
from grace is Juju. Ugh.
all these great players from Pittsburgh, that Mike Tomlin just couldn't seem to reel in, be a leader of.
Let me
Kinda
ask
weird.
you this.
Kind of
You see-
weird.
you see Joey Votto's career and you see what he's accomplished, Hall of Famer.
Here we go.
And you call him a TikTok first baseman. And then you see Juju Smith-Schuster, who actually is a TikTok wide receiver. Who's more of a TikTok player in their respective fields?
One's a Hall of Famer, one's not. So there you go.
So Joey
Man,
Votto's
by
a
the
Hall
way,
of
there
Fame
was like a
TikToker.
long rant. There was a long monologue about that. It was like a brief mention of TikTok, and that's what you have held on to until death do us part.
Well, because I think it's sick what you do. I think it's deranged.
Deranged. Yeah, that's the word I was going to use.
That you look at Joey Votto's career and you take the last 2 years when the Reds were terrible and you say Joey Votto was on TikTok during this stretch and that's why he didn't want to win.
It was just like a brief little shot in passing. You take shots at people all the time. It was just a little
like who?
hey,
I've never taken a shot at anybody.
the juice. But again,
I don't. That's because he did steroids. We're not allowed to make fun of a guy who did steroids.
Joey Votto did make TikToks.
He did make TikToks,
we can all agree on that.
but that wasn't the reason as to why he didn't want to win. He wanted to win.
Okay, I'm not in a debatable mood.
How much do you like Joe Burrow?
Love Joe Burrow.
Listen to the
Love
intro.
Joe Burrow.
Are you gonna get a tattoo of Joe Burrow right here?
I already have one on this cheek, but I have a lot of room on this other one for
There
it.
you go.
But nonetheless, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. Casey Solomon said he'd call in at 11, so we're good to go. As far as that goes, Solomon Wilcots will call into the show. We'll talk a little Cincinnati Bengals with him. Played his college days at Colorado, so we'll talk a little college football with him too. Will Dion get Colorado over the hump this year? We'll talk about that shortly. Here in a bit, as far as that's concerned. Yeah, I saw. What's that?
All I was just gonna say is the Colorado football program right now the most overrated, overhyped football program ever.
Yeah.
Of all time.
Possibly, but like I also see
I think last year, but yeah.
when they're in the headlines now, it is people burying them. So I kind of get the sense, like for them to be overrated, it would have to be a lot of us propping them up. They didn't come up high in the AP
When they were
poll.
3-0 last year, people like picked them to win the national championship, and then they went 1-10.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, that was like one of my favorite stretches of last college football season was that first month. I thought Colorado, that was like the coolest.
That Colorado State game was all.
That was one of like the coolest storylines, like to start the season. Colorado, I mean, you had every big celebrity. You had Lil Wayne. You had everyone like showing up to Boulder. I mean, it was a wild little stretch for college football. But then, you know, their deficiencies caught up with them and reality kicked in. So we'll see. But I don't know. And I think Kevin and I looked at their schedule the other day. It's actually, it opens the door for another kind of start like that where they can get off to a quick start. But we'll see as far as that's concerned.
They're going to lose to UC, though.
That's right. Sell out.
Sell out. It's going to be – I think my parents are going.
Dion might throw the game because he wants to be in Cincinnati so bad.
That's true.
That's
People
true.
forget about that. So they start with North Dakota State.
They're going to lose that game.
They're going to lose to North Dakota State.
They're going to lose that game. North Dakota State's number 2 team in the FCS. They're going to go into Colorado and they're going to whoop them.
Wow.
Nebraska on the road.
They'll beat Nebraska.
Colorado State on the road. Flip-flop.
That was a great game last year in Colorado at Colorado State.
Nicolossi's a great quarterback. Colorado State's quarterback's really good. He came back. He had a couple $1 million offers to transfer to Power 5 schools, and he came back to Colorado State. He's a really good quarterback. That's going to be another good game.
Baylor at home. These are their first 4.
I'm high on Baylor, too. I don't this.
So you're going 1-3.
I don't know.
1-3.
I think they'll go 2-2 in those games. I don't know which 2 they lose.
2-2.
2-2, 3-1 at the best.
Yeah.
I don't think they beat Nebraska and Baylor.
Fair.
I'm still picking them in week 1, but like again, week
It'd be
1
so
it would be
funny if he loses.
We'll
to an
find
FCS
out. Yeah,
school.
like because that's tough to come back from if you're Dion.
I asked the question for Satterfield. How long of a leash does he have? If they win 3 games this year, how long of a leash does Dion have?
I think he has such a long leash because the wins don't necessarily affect how much he's doing for Colorado.
I agree.
I think he's there as long as he wants to be there.
I think so.
Cincinnati's irrelevant if Satterfield keeps losing with them. Colorado's relevant win or lose. To your point,
Right.
Like I don't think that the higher ups at Colorado like it, but at the same time, Colorado when he leaves, they'll never be talked about.
I
in
do think
football
he's
again.
one good season away from leaving. One good season.
Yes.
His sons are gone. If he wins
Yep.
9-10 games, he'll bounce to a bigger school, in my opinion.
That's fair.
And I think win or lose this season with his kid gone, he may not want to associate his brand with Colorado for one more year of potential losing.
Unless he can get Julian Lewis, because Julian Lewis is still one of the best quarterbacks in this 2025 class. Colorado's in his final 3. If he can get a 5-star quarterback, then he'll stay there. But otherwise, I totally agree. I think he might go get a bigger brand to help with the recruiting.
I really want Deion to go to Miami. I really want it.
Yeah, he'd be great in Oxford.
Bring back the U.
Imagine how sick Brick Street would be with Deion as the head coach.
Yeah, you're right.
Cradle of coaches.
Oxford is calling his name.
Yeah.
There's faint echoes in the distance. Deion.
Oxford notorious for great coaches.
That's right.
It's true.
By the way, they put the Sean McVay statue up there. I still think that's the weirdest thing in the world.
The Cradle of Coaches?
Yeah, I did not.
I think it's
thought it was
awesome.
Weird.
No?
Cradle coaches.
You put up statues of coaches that didn't coach there. That's weird.
McVay coach there.
Or I'm sorry, no. Wait, hold on. Let me reset this.
Oh no.
What coaches did they put out there? There is a coach that they put
Is there
outside
one
of there
that
that
they
did
didn't
not
coach there? I don't know. I thought
We'll
they
look
coached
this
there.
up because I could be wrong on this. And if I am, then my apologies. But was he the head coach, though?
No.
Well, then that was my point.
Oh.
You're going to put just assistant coaches? Like, you're going to give assistant coaches statues?
I think if they win a Super Bowl, it's all right.
Assistant coaches you're giving statues to? Okay. We'll agree
Cradle
to
of
disagree.
Coaches. They're under Paul Brown,
Okay.
Woody Hayes,
Okay.
Ara Part. I don't know how to say that.
I mean, it's a great
Parsegian?
marketing thing.
That's it. Weeb. His name is Weeb Eubank.
Bo. Schembechler. John Harbaugh.
Yep.
Man, assistant
Crum.
coaches getting statues.
Crumb. Something funny about that name?
No. Just
Yeah, I didn't think
Dick
so. either.
Tomey. What? Bill Narduzzi?
Yeah, some good coaches.
Craig said, let's be honest, it's a fundraising tool. You add him to the Cradle of Coaches and try to get him to remember where he started and get him to donate $1 million to the football program. And that is what it is. But it's just, yeah. But whatever is what it is.
That Cradle of Coaches is the only reason I started my dynasty at Miami. I want a statue in there when I go somewhere else in the video game and win a championship.
All right, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. Solomon Wilcots joins us coming up here around the corners. I know coming up, got ads with Casey, housekeeping items, all that fun stuff. Solomon Wilcots on the radio side joins us when we come back.
Well, you know what time it is, folks. It's our lovely ad break and housekeeping items. Let's start things off with, of course, Pawnee Water, made right here in Hamilton, Ohio. It uses natural limestone filtration, unlike the artificial processing that other brands use. The result being a healthy alkaline water, and some say the best tasting water in the world. Visit Pawnee Water at PAHHNIwater.com so you can buy this great tasting water.
Oh, okay.
Thank you again, Pawnee Water.
I got you. All right.
The Bengals report that Jacob so just eloquently did earlier is proudly sponsored by Encore Technologies. At Encore Technologies, we deliver cutting-edge IT solutions for a data-driven world, from mobile computing and desktop support to advanced data center solutions. We help businesses enhance efficiency and
P
R
O
D
U
C
T
I
V
I
T
Y.
productivity.
That's right, Jimbo.
That's right, Jimbo. Visit encore.tech, where your path to innovation begins.
Where?
Here, there, everywhere.
But where?
Right here.
That exact chair.
Yes.
This chair right here. And let me tell you about the Game Time app. It is, quite honestly, one of the best ticketing apps that I've ever used. I love using it. You get to see exactly where you're sitting at. Pricing is all up front. They're starting to do this new Game Time Picks filter where it kind of filters out all the fluff, that all the tickets they have available, and they give you their best deals in this filter. It's really, really cool. They have super deals, and that's like their like hot deals, I guess. It makes it to where they lower the prices again for these tickets, and they're really, really good prices. Check out the super deals. It's really, really cool. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download Game Time app, create an account, and use code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code OTB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. And to be quite honest with you, if you look at the prices right now for some of these Reds tickets, I mean, they're on a roll right now.
Red hot.
They're red hot right now.
I would say Red's hot, personally.
You can get in for $8. That's an incredible deal right now. And, of course, there's plenty of Bengals tickets right now. I know they just released the Thursday night uniform dressing with the stripes.
Orange pants.
Orange pants.
Orange
It's here.
pants.
I cannot wait for it. And Cincinnati Open, Session 4 is today at 11. It's got some deals for that. And Session 5, they got some deals for that as well. That's tonight. Green Day comes to Great American Ballpark. They're sitting at $23 right now. That's a great deal. And they're starting to get back into the regular season, I believe, for MLS, and they've got some deals going on right now. Montreal FC for around $40. So go check out Game Time.
Tim
They're
Hortons,
great.
eh?
Tim Hortons? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, because you said Montreal.
Yeah.
Tim Hortons in
Sure.
Canada.
Canada. Mapletron.
That's right. Chase Claypool.
Claypool, the Mapletron.
Let's do some other housekeeping things.
Let's.
Hit the like button, please. Hit the like button. Share it with a friend. It helps us grow, and it helps us reach more people like you in the chat so we can continue to create this great community that we have here at Chatterbox. We really appreciate it. Memberships, we will have a box lunch on Wednesday, but we're going to be filming a video here very shortly for members, I believe. That's actually up to Elliot, but anyways, we have $10 memberships. That gets you all of our videos. And the $25 membership gives you a discount code for the merch store. So please check that out as well. Do we have anything else? Anything else coming up? Any other housekeeping items you guys can think of?
I think the house has been kept.
Yeah, the kept is the house.
Okay. House is clean.
You live right by the tennis. You're going to use Game Time to watch some tennis this week?
Probably not.
It's a shame.
That's what they say. Do that tennis.
That's what they say. Not a tennis guy?
No.
You've clearly never seen the sport.
Clearly never seen tennis.
I've seen tennis. I just, yeah. I keep thinking there's sides on this. Oh, there is. All right.
All right. Let's head back to the radio.
All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio. In Dayton, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here on this Tuesday. We will be joined shortly here by former Cincinnati Bengals Solomon Wilcots. We'll talk about things Bengals, of course, with him. Of course, Cincinnati Bengals camp, one preseason game in, and everything seemed to be rolling smoothly outside of the hold-in with Jamar Chase, of course. But Amarius Mims, a minor setback, according to Bengals Zach Taylor in the front office when it comes to the Amarius Mims injury. I know we talked about that earlier. We'll get into that with Solomon Wilcots coming up here in just a few moments. But outside of that Amarius Mims injury from yesterday, it is interesting to see what teams do to kind of adapt from that first preseason game. We're kind of on the same page. I don't think you're going to see a lot of the major skill position players playing another preseason game the rest of the way.
I believe that was announced, by
What's
the way.
that?
I believe that was announced, at least for Game 2.
Yeah, these headphones, they do kind of keep they're noise.
At least for Game 2, no starters for the Bengals. It'll just be 2s and 3s on that front. I don't know how it'll be for Game 3, but I would assume more of the same.
Which is why the Mims thing. Like, he was the perfect preseason candidate as far as getting a lot of these reps as far as that's concerned. And I know a little bit ago, we were talking about the significance of Trent Brown. Hopefully Trent Brown, who I know didn't show a lot of urgency for preseason initially or just camp initially, hopefully sees an opportunity to step up to be a leader in the absence of Mims, as he, of course, is recovering for this minor setback.
Yeah, I think Trent Brown recognizes what he's doing here. I mean, he signed a 1-year contract with the team. He knows he wants to compete for Super Bowl, and he knows the Bengals can do so. So he's going to come in and he's going to practice hard. He's going to put himself in the best position to succeed this year at right tackle, whether that's for 17 games or for 3 games or for no games. I think Trent Brown's going to, work hard in the offseason to get himself to a point where he's ready to play football in week 1. And that's what I expect. And, that's kind of where I'm at with the Bengals tackle battle. I would love to see Mims take that job, but I think it's been Trent Brown's. So I hope he just steps up to the plate and does the best job he can do, because we've seen him be a hell of a tackle in his career.
Yeah, here's the thing. Physicality is something that he's going to bring. My only concern, though, is if you don't have Amarius Mims this year, and again, there's no reason to believe he won't play this year. I'm just saying, if he's not available for a large portion of this season, how soon are you going to be concerned about Amarius Mims?
I am more concerned about him if the injuries pile up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, this is just one thing. It's before the season. This shouldn't be a season-ending injury by any means. It's probably a 4-week, 3 to 4 week injury, based on me, a doctor who's not a doctor. But as somebody who, again, not to compare sports, but as somebody who watches the Reds on a consistent basis, and we deal with injuries and they linger and linger and linger, and this is a guy who didn't have a lot of games in his college career, at some point I'm going to be concerned. If he has 2, 3, 4 injuries this season and he misses 8, 9, 10 weeks, and then we come into next season, I'm like, I can count on Amarius Mims, then I'm going to have a problem.
For sure. 100% agree.
All right, Casey, we good? We ready to rock? Yep. Awesome. Good stuff. All right, again, Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton, talking all things Cincinnati Bengals here as we kick off the second hour on radio, of course. Joining us now, former Cincinnati Bengal Solomon Wilcots, who's awesome enough to give us some time today. Solomon, we appreciate your time. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad. Hey, we appreciate you joining us. Look, I don't know how much of that you caught, but obviously this Bengals preseason's been an interesting one. Outside of the Jamar Chase hold-in, it's been a lot of positive vibes, and I don't think that Amarius Mims' injury is a reason to kind of derail from those positive vibes. But how crucial, how big of an impact is that Amarius Mims injury, in your opinion, as that's the first major injury that the Bengals have experienced to start camp?
Well, what it does, it sort of erodes some of the depth that you thought you would have on the offensive line. Clearly, he's your first-round pick. So that's like if you were to ask most teams if you lost your first-round pick in training camp. It's one that you should be concerned about. Look, we don't know how long he's going to be out. We just know he won't be there for the opener. It's a pec muscle, and you just kind of wait and see. The Bengals didn't really have him penciled in as a starter. Trent Brown was expected to start at right tackle. So they drafted at the right position, and I think they're going to be really good on the offensive line. We'll just have to see how good they can hold up over the course of the season.
Hi, Solomon. Thanks for joining the show. Jakob Junis here. I know you obviously played free safety in the league. So with the new look defensive backfield for the Bengals, bringing back Von Bell from the Panthers, bringing in Geno Stone from free agency, and moving Dax Hill to corner, how do you expect that new unit to play this year? Do you think they'll take a step up from last year?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to take a step up from last year. It was a far cry from what we expect from a Lou Anarumo defense last year. Think about it. Last year, they gave up over 100 explosive pass plays of 15 yards or more, ranked 30th in the National Football League last year. They want to eliminate the big plays. They gave up way too many of those. And even if Joe Burrow had stayed healthy, that would have been an area that could have spelled their doom 1 year ago. So it's certainly something they've got to get fixed. And, of course, that's why you see them bringing back Von Bell. They bring over Geno Stone. They got to begin to make big plays. Last year, they gave up big plays.
Absolutely. And the other side of that, just one more question. DJ Reader left to go to the Lions, and the Bengals seem to, at least in week 1 of the preseason, have struggled with the depth, at least on the defensive line, with stopping the run. Do you think that's an issue that will persist for the rest of the season, or do you think this new defensive line will gel well together and be able to make up for that lost production from DJ Reader?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not concerned about it. I don't think preseason game will really, I think, necessitate. Because think about it, with the starters in there, you got Sheldon Rankins, B.J. Hill, Trey Hendrickson, Sam Hubbard. None of those guys were in a preseason game. I don't think you come away in a preseason game, but the starters aren't playing, and then point to that as something that's going to be a problem all year.
Solomon, what's wild, too, we talk so much. I know you guys are on the defensive side of the ball there, but, going back to Joe Burrow real quick, it's wild as he enters year 5, the fact that he just played in his very first preseason game. I mean, this is the furthest into preseason that he's been even available for the Bengals at all. We've seen how good this team could be when he's healthy during the regular season, but how much of a bump does this team get having him healthy in the preseason at this point here in mid-August?
Look, yeah, I mean, the first year he was available, they just didn't want to throw him out there. That was a COVID year. That was in his rookie season. The second year, remember, he was coming off the knee injury, and so even though he was available, they didn't want to put him in there too soon coming into year number 2 either. And then year number 3, that was the appendicitis season, and then last year he had the calf injury. So he had been available, but they were just trying to be smart and not try to rush it in there, particularly with an offensive line. If you're not playing starters, but I think it was well important to see Joe get out there with everyone and play all the starters. This is a team that got off to an 0-2 start each of the last 2 years. So it's more than about just Joe Burrow. It's about the team getting off to a better start. So I think when you start 0-2 2 years in a row, I think you're going to do a lot of things differently coming in the next year.
Yeah, speaking of the importance of the offseason camp and how much more weight Zach Taylor and the coaching staff seems to be putting on it, how much weight do you put on the Jamar Chase holdout and how much that could affect the early weeks of the season, both his production and the team's ability to win and be the electric offense that we all expect?
I think Jamar, look, the guy's a tremendously hard worker. You guys ought to see this guy in the weight room. You never seen a wide receiver lift and bang weights. You have to probably think about an Antonio Brown, before you think of a wide receiver who can pound the weights like a linebacker. That's Jamar Chase. So he'll be fine. I remember coming in his rookie year, and he dropped a lot of balls in the preseason, dropped a lot. And then that very first game against the Vikings, man, he looked like the guy that we knew he'd be. So players, particularly someone like himself, he'd rather be practicing. There's no doubt about it. But he's catching balls on the jug machine, making sure it's kind of like a 3-point shooter. You got to get your shots up, and if you're a wide receiver, you got to get balls caught. You'd rather be doing those while running routes and doing everything. That'd be great. But right now, I'm not concerned. I think if this persists and he doesn't practice at all, now he's got to play week 1, I think that is not optimal at all.
Solomon, with that, there's obviously a lot of other receivers around the league who are kind of, fighting for their contract with their respective teams, but it seems like there's drama in Dallas. It seems like there's drama with Ayuk and the Niners. This Jamar Chase Bengals situation doesn't feel like there's drama there. This just seems like a negotiation tactic on his behalf, obviously. But every team is different, every owner is different in how they approach this. Mike Brown has a reputation of, we've had Bengals reporters on in recent weeks where they say, hey, he doesn't blink. He will not blink in this situation. Where do you see this going? Were you surprised initially when you did hear, for one, that Jamar Chase was sitting out when camp first began with really no true indicators that this could have been a possibility this camp? And how do you see this playing out? Who is going to blink first, if you will, in this scenario?
First of all, he's holding in, right? He's not sitting out. It's called a hold in. A lot of players do that now. I think it's the right way to go about it, because if he were to get hurt, while in practice, that would obviously take away his leverage in the negotiation. So we saw T.J. Watt do that. We've seen a lot of players do it. It's become sort of the thing to do. Many of these owners, they have to admit that they're following an old model because they don't want to – see, they don't mind taking money off the running back's plate But then tell me, where's the bump going to come? So if you're not going to pay running backs anymore like you used to, who's the next biggest threat on your offense other than your quarterback? It used to be the running back, right? That's why they got paid. Well, now these owners seem to all agree they don't want to pay the running back, but they don't want to agree that next best player, the next best weapon on offense, is your wide receiver. And that's why the market keeps moving. Jerry Jones is in this situation because he's slow to the market. He don't want to pay, but then the market keeps moving on him. And then you don't want to pay that either. And Howie Roseman of the Eagles is probably the best because he's got a $50 million quarterback, $30 million a year receiver, and a $28 million a year receiver. And he got him to the market early because he knows that price is just going to keep going up. And the same is true for Jamar Chase. The same is true for CeeDee Lamb. Same is true for Brandon Ayuk. And so these owners need to understand, if you're not going to understand your salary allocation, then you're going to lose really good players because the collective bargaining agreement is designed to put these players back on the market after a certain period of time. And we all know these teams don't want to lose Brandon Ayuk. 49ers don't want to lose him. Bengals don't want to lose Jamar Chase. And the Cowboys don't want to lose CeeDee Lamb. So that's who has the leverage here. The players ultimately has the leverage. You want to know who's going to blink. And I'm talking if you're playing the long game. The players, they can't keep them long-term without playing them. They got to pay them.
Solomon Wilcots with us here, former Cincinnati Bengal. Solomon, I follow your show, and there was a point where when T. Higgins, when he signed his tender early and everyone, they kind of caught people by surprise. You've been adamant that the Cincinnati Bengals, need to extend T, that he needs to remain a part of the core along with Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Following that and your take on that, I initially had disagreed at the time because I thought, man, $100+ million into 3 players on one side of the ball, like that's tough to do. But now that I've started to see and mainly I had that take because there really wasn't teams out there that were doing that. There was no blueprint for that. But now you're starting to see teams, and you talked about the shift in the market for wide receivers. Now you look at the Dolphins. Now you look at the Eagles, and you look at the Niners once they get this Ayuk thing figured out, assuming they keep him. There's going to be a handful of teams that now have invested almost $100+ million into multiple wide receivers and a quarterback. Does that shift the thinking for those who believe that the Bengals were right for not extending T. Higgins? And do you think that changes the front office approach? Could T. Higgins be revisited about a long-term solution in Cincinnati, in your opinion?
I could care less what other people think. I'm telling you, the market spoke loud and clear that if you want, remember, you're not paying the running back anymore. So your next best productive player on the offense is your first wide receiver. The next guy is the second wide receiver because most of these teams, they run 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and 1 running back. So your second wide receiver is your second. He's the second best player on offense other than the quarterback. And that's why you have to allocate the money in that way. Think of it that way. The Eagles are ahead of the curve. The Dolphins are ahead of the curve. $50 million quarterback, a wide receiver making $30+ million a year, and a wide receiver making $28 million a year. And the Bengals could have signed T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, and we could what would we be talking about then? Yes, they have the money. They just got a check from the NFL, $400 million for player contracts. That's just the TV revenue alone. That's before you count 1 ticket sold, 1 jersey sold. That's just from the TV contracts alone. So they got a check for $400 million. Every single team did, right? They made over $13 billion last year. And their salary cap is $255 million. Do the math. This thought that we can't afford this, we can't. That's a thing of the past. You're doing bad math if you believe you got $400 million, your salary cap is $255, and you can't afford your players. That's bad math.
You were talking about wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, but I've been very interested in the wide receiver 3 position this year, Solomon. Who have you been impressed with so far, Andre Iosivas or Jermaine Burton? And is there a chance Jermaine Burton can take that wide receiver 3 spot at some point this season?
Look, Jermaine Burton is the truth. He's as good. Let's just say he might be as good as any receiver on the roster. Now that's saying a lot. But what you have to understand with young players is that you've got to let them grow into that. And he came in the game and showed us exactly what many of us already knew about him. You know, you're talking. That's really, he almost had 2 touchdowns over 30 yards. He had 2 plays over 30, the 37 and the 38-yarder. Who else is doing that? I mean, and I love Andre Iosivas. I think who's going to be awesome, by the way. I do like him as a third. I like Trenton Irwin as a third because they're going to win in a lot of critical moments, and it's more than just, run down the field and catch the ball. You got to be able to do a lot of different things, and I think Burton's going to be the guy, but I think the fact that we've got a crowded wide receiver room, and that's what I love, because I think any of those guys can be the third. But what will probably happen is one of them will be the third, and one of the other one's going to be the fourth. The other guy is going to be the fifth. And if you put them all out there, we're going to eat other teams' lunch. And that's what I love. So I know we know who the 1 and 2 is, but once we put a 3, 4, and a 5 out there, they're as good as anybody else's 2. That's how good the Bengals wide receiver room is in 2024.
All right, Solomon Wilcots, awesome enough to give us some time here today off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton, Ohio. Send us out with this, Solomon. It's a loaded AFC North. Obviously, you're pretty high on the Cincinnati Bengals, but how do they stack up with the AFC North? It's loaded. Every team in the North last year finishing above 500. There was a chance where it looked like they would have been the first division to get all 4 teams into the playoffs. We know it's a loaded division. How do you see the AFC North shaking out this season?
Since the beginning of this decade, the AFC North has won more games than any other division in football. Write it down. And I said that even going into last year. They did it again, and they continue to impress. And that's why now Hard Knocks has come a-calling, where they're going to feature the AFC North division. All 4 teams play outside. You don't get to hide in the cold of December and January. You got to bring in lunch. I played for 2 of the teams in this division, and trust me when I tell you, it is the most physical division in the league. If you ask me to take one quarterback of the 4, I'm taking Joe Burrow, and I think he gives them the edge every day of the week. I think the Ravens' defense is going to go through some growing pains. I do love the Cleveland Browns defense. I love the Cleveland Browns offensive line. I love the Cleveland Browns secondary. I think the Browns are bringing a whole lot to the table. We don't know what quarterback's going to show up. They had to start 5 of them to get through the season last year. And I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, while the defense is good, they're going through some growing pains on offense. So I'm telling you, I think the Bengals, if they stay healthy, I think they're winning the division again. But that's still not saying enough. It's going to be a tough road through the playoffs to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. That really is where the Bengals are headed. That's got to be their goal.
All right, Solomon Wilcots, former Cincinnati Bengal, awesome enough to give us some time today. Solomon, you are the man, sir. Thanks for dealing with my harassing text messages, trying to get you on the show this week. We appreciate you, and we'll talk soon.
Well, thank you for understanding. I'm on the mend, but it's great to be back. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, good stuff. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. We'll, of course, dissect our conversation with Solomon Wilcots when we come back. More Bengals talk next. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett, off and rolling here on a Tuesday. So people were going at you for your interview voice. for your.
I didn't know that I changed my voice. Did I?
Like I used to get. Now I'm just.
Oh, okay.
But like, yeah.
Maybe it's because I had the
you
headphones
didn't do
on and it
anything
sounded
wrong,
different.
but like, yeah, there's. You're not going to talk to a guest the way you just talk.
No,
crap
I
to
respect
us.
Solomon
yes,
Wilcots.
yeah, you don't respect me or Elliot or
They were
Casey.
saying
I mean,
they were saying it sounded like the Trace voice, and it was.
I respect Trace.
Well, it was like, hey, Mr.
Mr.
Fowler.
Saban.
Hey, Mr. Saban. Hey, I'm Jacob. It was more of that one. I think that's what they were trying to say.
Well,
Jacob.
maybe.
You should have done the James Madison voice. That one always plays.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
How fast do you think you would have hung up if we did the James Madison voice?
Pretty quick. That would have been an Elam part 2. That would have been an Elam ending to the interview.
It would have been the Elam ending.
You did fine. Just to be
Thank
clear.
you.
Don't listen to those bullies in the chat. dude.
Half bad voice, half good question. So we'll take that.
No, Solomon's great. Appreciate his time. We'll have him on again to talk college football another time, but appreciate him diving in to all things Cincinnati Bengals. Yeah, that's the one thing. He was adamant about the Bengals when the whole T. Higgins thing was going on. He was against them franchise tagging him. He wanted them to get an extension done with him. There was no reason not to have him and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow locked up as the triplet core moving forward. At the time, I disagreed with that because there was no – I mean, it's kind of wild thinking about the Bengals having the highest paid quarterback and wide receiver at the same time. You add T. Higgins into that. But I'm watching what the Dolphins are doing. I'm watching what the Niners are most likely going to get this thing with Ayuk figured out. And now you're going to have 2 super expensive receivers in Debo and Ayuk. And then Brock Purdy's going to be paid in the $55 million range, which is wild, coming up next offseason. So the blueprint's there. It's not as if there's no one else in the league doing that. So it is interesting. I know he's been adamant about the Bengals' handling of T. Higgins. He's been one of the few that have been very vocal about it's wrong not to extend him. I know we've all been okay with the idea of, we want T, but you don't need T. He's adamant that you need T and that they should get it done as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I've always been on the other side, but I've never acted like I wouldn't be over the moon if they found a way to extend T. Higgins too. So I don't really think there's a wrong way to approach this. Like he said, it was a clear no until other teams put out the blueprint of how to do it. So the Dolphins have done it, the Eagles have done it, paying 2 elite wide receivers and their quarterback as well. So it's definitely a possibility more now than it was before. So I think the window continues to open a little bit, basically, every month or so it seems.
I think I really do believe if the Bengals offense is going to look as good as we hope it can be with T. Higgins, with Jamar Chase, with a healthy Joe Burrow, and go down the line there, and the Bengals offense can prove that they are the reason we win games, they are the reason we are in control of every single game we play, we being the Bengals, sorry, unprofessional, but whatever. Then I can see them extending T. If T and Jamar go off this season and the Bengals are scoring 30-something points a game, 28 points a game, then yeah, I think you can look to extend T because that's the reason you're winning. And I know people would look at the defense and what happened last season, and they got torched. But at the end of the day, if you score way more points than the other team, obviously it's a recipe for success.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think from an organizational standpoint, if T goes off for 1,500 yards and plays 17 games, you definitely would want to extend him.
Yep.
I think the only way the Bengals keep T. Higgins is if he has a bad year. I think if he underperforms or misses a lot of games and doesn't get a massive contract elsewhere, he would take a little bit of a pay cut or so to stay on the Bengals. But if you're talking about $25 million to $30 million, if he has a 1,500-yard year and he's going to go be a number 1 somewhere else, I think that really shuts the door on us keeping T. Higgins. So I'm kind of splitting the line. Obviously, I'm going to root for T to go off and help the Bengals win this year while he's here, while he's under contract. But if injuries do plague him again like they have for the last couple years of his career, I think that is a way to reopen this negotiation window as well.
Yep.
Also talked about, you asked him about Burton and wide receiver 3 as far as that's concerned. I mean, T. Higgins, his future with the Bengals is – the only thing we know now is his future with the Bengals is this season, and that's what is known, and that's what's guaranteed. So 1, 2, 3 was the big question mark. But you liked what he had to say about the future of Burton, but also Yoshi as well.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly exciting. You hear what Burrow and all the coaches have said about Yoshi the whole time, and then Jermaine Burton obviously tears it up in game 1. And everyone that's watched practice have said that both, and including Charlie Jones before he went hurt, all 3 of them have really had a great camp and were competing for that number 1 spot, which is exactly what you want to hear when you have 3 guys and you don't really know who's going to start, and you like them all, and they all seem like they could be good, influential pieces to the offense. So they all seem to be doing well, and it's encouraging to continue to hear that from different voices around the team.
100%.
All right, off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Casey, I know you said yesterday you're a Bengals fan. Now's the time to speak up. Anything on the Solomon Wilcots conversation?
Casey, did I steal one of your questions? Because you looked at me funny after I asked my question.
No. There was one question I didn't know whether or not to ask because I didn't know if it was already brought up because I was focusing on making sure that we are looking good and sounding good. I wanted to know what his thoughts were on the defensive line, and T.R. Tarp potentially coming to Cincinnati would be one that I would have asked him, but I didn't know if we had already brought it up or not. Sorry.
I didn't ask about T.R. Tarp specifically, but I asked about the new D-line and everything, replacing Reader.
Yeah, that's right. So I thought it was a really good interview. I really liked what he had to say about T. Higgins. I personally, and I know that my heart is not always in the right here, but I can't fathom letting top players leave your franchise roster. I don't understand it. Letting Jesse Bates walk as a top 3 safety in the NFL drove me up a wall. I couldn't stand it. T. Higgins falls into a different camp for me. He's a top 25 receiver at his position. There's a chance that he could be a top 10 receiver this year if he has a great year. And kind of like what Jacob said, if he does that, there's probably little to no chance that we could ever keep him because he's going to be asking for way more money, probably in the 30s at that point. It might, probably be at that number already, to be honest with you. The way that things are trending, Jamar Chase probably going to get more than 33, 34 probably. So I don't know, man. I think it would be hard for T. Higgins to stay here in Cincinnati now at this point. I think your chance to do it was a year or two ago, and now that opportunity's kind of passed by. And also, too, the Bengals have clearly shown that they are invested and really good at developing young receiver talent. I mean, we've had so many draft picks now just dedicated to that position. I just don't think it's necessary to keep T. Higgins. And they need to focus on more things. And I was just looking at the free agents available or the free agents that are coming up with the Bengals here in the next year. And you look at guys like B.J. Hill, Mike Hilton, some other key pieces that we're hoping to have a lot of success here with, like Von Bell and Gesicki and ADG, Trent Brown. These guys, it just feels like the Bengals have a lot more holes to fill next year, a lot more things to worry about than the receiver position after how much they've already addressed it. So.
Yeah, and again, outside of the Mims injury and just the Jamar Chase, I said hold out earlier, but hold in. Really all full steam ahead as far as that's concerned. But we got that first preseason game, and now I'm bored. Yeah, I just want the season to get here.
It's almost here.
I just want the season.
It's so close
to officially
you can taste
get
it.
Here. Everett Henry says, my last show was last Wednesday. It was very anti-Bengal. I was very happy to be out of town for the next few days. I was happy for that too. But he's back. He said his last show was last Wednesday, but he's back again. I don't understand how that works. Is this like other people that said they weren't going to watch the Olympics and then they set record viewership this year for the Olympics? I mean, I just don't understand how that works. But they
wanted to watch the breakdancing.
That record viewership because of that. And then again, they're taking 2028 off, and they're going to come back in 32 with breakdancing. It takes a long time.
No. They took 2028 off, and the official breakdancing conglomerate or whatever said the door is still open to come back in 2032.
Oh.
Let me take a wild guess. They're not getting that in.
That door's open, but it's like cracked?
Yeah, I think the door's closed from everyone else's
You said it's still open in 2032?
Yeah.
So, like, in 8 years, are we going to even remember that breakdancing was a thing?
No.
Because I think that was their plan when they said that. Like, yeah, breakdancing might come back in 2032.
Well, I think they're banking on the 2028 Olympics rolling around and all the, tenacious fans that watch breakdancing this year being like, where's our breakdancing? And the pushback being so loud that they have
thousands of fans.
They have to add it. Hundreds even.
So, the 2028 Olympics in L.A., they will have swimming at SoFi Stadium. They will do basketball at is it the Intuit Dome?
Yeah.
Where's that at?
Inglewood. It's the new Clippers Arena. It looks incredible.
Okay. I didn't know that's what they had named.
It's in California.
That gymnastics will be at Crypto Arena.
At Crypto?
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't think they'd use that. It's so old.
Now, the new sports that they will introduce for this Olympics will be baseball and softball.
Very interested to see what happens with baseball. A lot of players saying they want to play, but it's very much in the middle of the MLB season. So
other sports do it, and they get away with it.
What do you think baseball will do, though? Do you think they'll just do a pause in the season?
I don't think they're going to let them play this year.
It would be pretty. It would be. I don't even know how the money would work.
I think they'll play in 32.
Yeah. Do you think they'll play in 32?
I think they'll play in 32. I don't think they'll play this year.
I don't think they'll do it because you'd have to do a shortened season, and I don't.
Well, you could just move the All-Star break and give them 2 weeks off.
Yeah, but that. Okay.
So the Olympics is a 2-week
You
stretch,
just play
right?
the same long season with an extra week off.
Yeah.
And is there a week for practice and all that stuff too? Like
That's what I don't know. WNBA has the Olympics in the middle of their season, and they take the 2-week All-Star break for it. So that's kind of the model that I think everyone's suggesting if they do go that route. But there's already so much pushback about star players playing in the World Baseball Classic, both from fans and owners. I'd be shocked if this is an easy switch to move an entire schedule around, and game times are already announced for next year. It'd be a big move, but I think enough players have been loud enough about it right now that I think it'll happen eventually. I just think this first Olympics is too quick of a turnaround.
Yeah. You think they can't? And I'm not disagreeing with you, but I just don't think it's that crazy. 4 years is not enough time to figure out how you would navigate through that.
I think it's pretty quick. We already have a CBA in place for that long. You'd have to move an entire All-Star break around. So yeah, I think that's about the time I would.
Or do you just not have enough? I don't know if they've announced how far out do they announce All-Star host sites? Is that just like a year in advance? Because I'm just wondering if the solution is you just don't have an All-Star. Well, baseball, it's a money-making thing. They're not just going to get. So that's kind of a silly take right there.
I don't think they have
Clown Kenner right there with
none of the All-Stars would play in the All-Star game if they could play in the Olympics. Those are the players that would be in the Olympics.
2026 is the last, or is the farthest out the All-Star game is planned.
Philly, right?
Yeah, Philly is 2026. Atlanta's next year. So maybe they could. I don't know.
That'd be awesome. I'm rooting for it. I think it'd be really cool.
The only reason I would feel like baseball would try to be progressive with this is because it would be in the States.
Yeah.
If this Olympics in 28 was out of the country, I would agree with you more that, okay, we need more time to fit. But I think it might make it a little easier, if there's such thing, to adapt with as progressive as baseball has been.
If the NFL officially says NFL players can play flag football, that'll heavily influence baseball's decision.
About that.
Jalen Hurts did the ad for the Olympics at the Coliseum, so I expect that to happen. Obviously, that's during the offseason. It's a lot easier to do, but I think if NFL players are playing in the Olympics, baseball players that want to play will be very upset if they're not allowed to.
Yep, and I do think that this is a bad take. I do think playing in the Olympics, I'd be more okay with my guys playing in the Olympics than playing in the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah.
It's just my opinion. I know it could be wrong.
World Baseball Classic's equivalent to the World Cup for FIBA World Cup for basketball, and they asked Anthony Edwards if he wants to play in the World Cup next year for Team USA, and he laughed at the reporter. He said, "I'll see you next Olympics." So,
well, that answers that.
Yeah.
So the new sports for the next Olympic go-round, baseball, softball, cricket and squash will be added.
Squash will be fun.
I know nothing about either of those.
We did a cricket segment on.
I remember the cricket segment.
Yeah, I do remember the cricket segment. That was one of our best shows for sure.
For sure.
Flag football, as you guys talked about, and lacrosse will be added.
Lacrosse will be great.
So I'm from like a small, like Van Wert's small town, like Mercer County, small county up north. I know Van Wert's not in Mercer, but like it's all that area I'm from up there. Like it was wild moving to Dayton and having so many schools that have lacrosse. Like that was just kind of wild to me. Like lacrosse is actually a very popular sport even in high school now. Yeah. So lacrosse being added as an Olympic sport is pretty cool. The discontinued sports will be boxing, potentially, is what they have here, and then obviously breakdancing. So there's that.
Blackmore asks a phenomenal question. When do you think pickleball makes it to the Olympics?
Soon.
2032?
Oh, it'll be soon.
36?
It'll be soon.
You guys are big on that, right? Like I feel like that's been talked about more and more in like the last year or two.
I like pickleball. Pickleball's fun. Alex not a huge fan.
I'm not a huge fan.
I thought you were.
No.
He's a tennis guy.
What's the difference?
Well, that's the thing.
Is it like tennis table? Is it like table tennis on steroids?
Right. No, there's no difference.
So you just compared a non-tennis event to ping pong, which is also non-tennis, and then try to compare it to tennis.
I'm sorry, I didn't. I mean, there's a
this
lot
is
of.
This is what's wrong with the world. is
He
that
just gave me
Kinner
this, by the way.
just compared pickleball to ping pong, who he then compared it to tennis.
You all, no matter what.
That's on the radio now. That's for the listeners. It's time for a break.
Yes, no more of this pickleball slander / tennis / table tennis, ping pong, what have you. Off the bench, more next.
It's about an Asian fellow that wears a Yao Ming jersey and plays
That's
tennis, table tennis.
All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, 1410 ESPN Radio in Dayton. So yes, you guys did a feature on Chatterbox. Was that pickleball? Was that tennis? I'm not even sure.
We did
where I was-
pickleball.
we did pickleball. We played pickleball.
Yeah, you and Elliot, or you and Casey were the tag team champions, correct?
No, they lost. But
No,
we
we
didn't
lost.
know the rules. we
Team
didn't know how to
chemistry
score,
was through the
so
roof. I saw.
We're gonna have to run that back.
We were gonna have to
Technically-
run it back with the referee because nobody understood how to play the game.
That's right.
The only people that knew how to play the game were the guys on the other team, and then they couldn't explain to me the rules.
Well, that's not our
Technically-
job.
Well, but it was.
Technically, we didn't lose. If you go back and watch the tape, they gave themselves a few points here and
It's
there.
a collective scorekeeping. So
Yeah.
if you don't call it out when it happens, statute of limitations, double jeopardy, can't go to court twice for the same crime.
Double jeopardy.
Now that we're on the pickleball topic, Casey paused the game to video review something, called it in, and then blamed me because it was out when he was editing. He reviewed it.
No, I don't remember that.
There's a lot of asterisks that are going on with that pickleball.
Oh,
video, but that's all right.
Everett said spoiler alert. We probably should have given a spoiler alert.
You're right. Sorry.
If you like watching us play sports poorly, we're
That's-
going to take soccer penalty kicks on old Jeremiah in goal after the shows today. So that video will be out shortly.
Jeremiah out stretching right now.
I think, yeah. He almost went D1.
He's actually going to get a ball. Because I texted him this morning, hey, because I was told Jeremiah was, he wanted to do this. I presumed.
He pitched the idea.
Correct. He pitched the idea.
He played high school soccer.
He played high school. I presumed he had the soccer ball.
Right, at least one.
So I texted him this morning because I had this theory in my brain that maybe he actually doesn't have the soccer ball with him. And sure enough, my theory came true. He did not. So I gave him some money to go get us a soccer ball.
Was it the 20?
The what?
You just have a lot of 20s in your pocket?
Yeah, you're
20
right. It
for
was
hot
a- it
dogs,
was a
20 for...
20. I gave him 15. If that's not enough, sorry. Soccer balls are far too expensive.
So you thought it was a weird move to challenge y'all to a little soccer challenge and not have the kickball ready to go?
Well,
I presumed that the soccer guy had the soccer ball. That was my mistake. We played baseball with Reed. He had bats. He had gloves. We had pickleball. We had pickleball things.
that's right.
What are pickleball things?
They're the little wooden things.
Like you have for
Rackets and balls,
like you have for
tennis?
ping pong? Like
No, it's not rackets. It's not rackets.
Is it like you use for ping pong?
No,
There
it's
seemed to
not
be
like
some
ping
drama
pong.
about comparing it to ping pong earlier.
It's like wiffle ball. You use a wiffle ball that you would do wiffle ball with,
Okay.
and then you get a little wooden paddle
Or carbon fiber.
or carbon fiber
Those are the nice ones.
if you really want to win.
So the pores use just the
A
regular
Chatterbox
wooden one.
dodgeball game would be very fun.
That would be fun.
Oh yeah.
Why? So y'all just
2-on-2?
throw crap at me?
Yeah. Bacon, yes. Bacon says tetherball. Tetherball. What happened to tetherball?
Tetherball was huge
People,
when I was
no
there.
one actually knows how to play.
Well, but bring it back.
They just hit it at each
they-
other.
Yeah, you just hit it as
There's
hard
no
as you can.
tetherball anymore.
I think that's good.
But there's none? Why aren't there any tetherball?
Ball on
Where
a
do
string,
you
dude,
want
you
them
never
to
lose
go?
In public places like they used to be.
It's like Pete Rose statue, Joe Morgan, tetherball.
Tetherball. Random places. And I just want to hit a tetherball. You don't do it for a
That's
long
fair.
time, but like 3 minutes?
What if, I mean, the ultimate Chatterbox feature is just an hour straight of him by himself at a park just hitting
Just hitting a
tetherball.
tetherball.
Just a little funny music in the background.
That would be great.
No one else out there. One more time. But there you go. All right, college football. Want to talk a little college football?
It's my favorite thing in the world.
I didn't ask Solomon about Colorado. I was kind of afraid to.
Yeah, I was going to when I had questions, but then
But
all my questions about Colorado are negative.
When I heard him say, I don't really care what other people think, I'm like, I'm gonna sit this one.
Yeah.
I'm I'm gonna be.
Hey, Solomon, you think your alma mater's going to miss the bowl game for the second straight year with high expectations? Because I do.
So
Did you go to the concert?
what?
The Shadur concert.
Oh, yes.
I think all alumni were forced to go.
Do
Or
you
they
think
had to
that-
run laps.
Do you think that was true that they've made
Yeah.
players run laps? That didn't
I do
go?
think that's true.
That's
I
kinda
wouldn't
wild.
think it's true unless I saw a video of Dion walking into the team room and saying, I brought my own Louis, and you need to transfer if you're not good enough. So that seems like a thing that he would do.
Are you guys pro Dion? Do you guys like Dion?
Yeah,
I
if
like-
you can't tell, I'm a huge Dion fan.
I like Dion the same way I like a really good TV show that has really interesting characters. I think it's
Fair.
entertaining. Would I want Dion as my head coach with all the stuff that's gone on at Colorado? I don't know. I don't know about that because it seems like there's been quite a bit of distractions from football. And I think that bit gets tired if you don't win football games.
Yeah, I think Dion was a phenomenal corner in the NFL, one of the best of all time.
Yes.
That's my thoughts on his coaching.
That was a very good way to put it. Very respectful way to put it.
Yeah, that's going to be deflating for that program when you were nothing before Dion. You're only talked about with Dion, and then you'll be even less talked about when he leaves for all the wrong reasons. So
Yeah.
that's just kind of
In order for this experiment to be beneficial for Colorado in the long term, they have to win with him there and then sustain that when he inevitably leaves. But it doesn't really look like he's focused on winning. It looks like he's focused on getting his guys to the league, which is kudos to him. That's fine.
All right, so the AP Top 25 poll came out yesterday, which, by the way, I hate the AP Top 25 poll. I hate the coaches poll. I hate all the polls. The only poll that actually technically matters when it comes to college football is the playoff poll, even
I have
though
a long-standing take on polls that we should not rank teams until the first college football playoff poll comes out.
100% right.
Everyone ranks them. You have to because then you can say one plays 3
Yep.
in week 1 and sell tickets for $1,000. But we should not rank teams till week 8 because you get to the playoff and you hear, oh, so-and-so has 4 ranked wins. And you go check their schedule. You're like, oh, that sounds pretty good. You go check their schedule. 3 of those teams are 8-4 and haven't been ranked since week 5.
And that's where, like, I know Jacob doesn't like my take where I do think it's not the sport isn't rigged, but there are certain advantages you can have over other teams based on nonsensical reasons like this stupid poll. You're ranked 8th. If you're ranked 8th at the opening poll of the year, it's far easier to get to number 1
For sure.
than it is if you're ranked 23rd. And by the way, both the 23rd team could be better than the 8th ranked team. It's just based on how you feel, essentially. These writers and whoever the hell else is in this poll committee. I think Jacob, that take that Jacob just gave is 100% correct. Nobody should be ranked until you are deciding who to put into the college football playoff.
in the playoff, the college football playoff poll, they do it right too by waiting. What is it, like 6?
I think it's week 6.
Like week 6, yeah.
I don't know if that's the same this year or not.
It's also easier to decide who's ranked. There's how many undefeated teams will there be in week 7? Like there will be like 4 or 5 or whatever it will be.
Yeah,
3.
when I said a 3-loss team is going to make the playoff this year, there was a lot of pushback in the chat. It's just like, oh, 3-loss teams never make anything. I think people are drastically underestimating the importance of the conference realignments. I don't think we're going to have more than 1, maybe 2 undefeated teams, and I think the rest aren't just going to be 1-loss teams. I think they're going to be 2 and 3-loss teams playing for these conference championships. So, yeah, I think these preseason rankings are more valuable than ever when they still mean nothing.
Yep.
So, no, and with that too, and that's like so on from a college basketball standpoint, they always call it the net. They use the net and all this stuff. And the thing that's interesting about that is like when everyone's playing on an equal playing field when the season starts, how are you? The net is based on who you play. So how are you automatically have a net ranking right off the bat without playing anybody before even going into a season? That doesn't make any sense. You're playing catch-up if you're a mid-major team the rest of the way. Same thing with this. I do think the college football playoff ranking, when that comes out 6 weeks in, but even then, the only reason I say that the AP and some of these matter is because until I hear otherwise, I do think they play a role in the perception of which teams are good and bad.
For sure.
So when we look at these top 10 teams, don't put it up yet, Casey, but the top 10 teams in the AP that have come out, we say that this doesn't matter, but it only matters because we're going to base on, man, if this team, like for Ohio State, if they're going to have a win over for Oregon possibly, right, at a certain point. Man, they have a legitimate top 5 win, so Ohio State, they have to be ranked high because of that. Well, what, this poll that we just said means absolutely nothing, but we're going to put stock in that. But the thing is, we know Oregon's good. We know a good chunk of these teams are good. I still think, well, the other thing I always hear people talk about with college football, they hate the star ranking system for the players. But I kind of understand. I've heard some of the horror stories of how parents manipulate some of these. You know, they go to some of these camps and they'll have, some hot dog money, as Elliot has, to give to some of these camp directors. And all of a sudden they go from a 4 to a 5-star, 3 to a 4-star. That plays a huge role in the money that comes to these kids for the NIL and everything else. But with that being said, there is a direct correlation between the teams that have the most 4 and 5 stars and the teams that win national championships and are in the playoffs. People last year wanted to bring up, like, well, when you get into the Cincinnati thing too, it's like, well, how do you know that Ohio State with 2 losses is better than an undefeated Cincinnati team? Well, I mean, I'm not saying these players haven't developed and turned into really good players, but I mean, history tells us the teams with the most 4 and 5 stars, the reason this matters is because that's in essence telling you this is the team that has the better players. Whatever. So this poll comes out, yesterday. Georgia 1, Ohio State 2, Oregon 3, Texas 4, Alabama 5, Ole Miss 6, Notre Dame 7, Penn State 8, Michigan 9, and Florida State 10. So you see that poll right there on the left. That's the very first poll that's the poll from yesterday. The poll on the right is the very first poll that ever came out back in 1936. Cool. I was going to have you guess some of these, but the graphic already, it shows kind of some of those anyways. But it is wild seeing the very first AP poll that came back out in 1936 featuring teams like Duke and Army, Northwestern even with Purdue at the top. Yeah. I mean, Yale coming in at number 10. It's kind of a wild top 10 in the very first AP poll that came out in 36 compared to all these years later here in 2024.
Yale used to be a powerhouse. Yale was the powerhouse of college football.
I still think they're top 3 in championships.
I'm sure they are.
They played 2 a year. They played 2 games a year. They're both championship games.
I'm sure, in 1948, I'm sure they were the champions of the world. Yeah, it is crazy how far it's come, but I'm going to touch on the Cincinnati thing you just mentioned, just because I want to.
No, you're good.
I think nobody I think is saying that the Ohio State football roster isn't better than the Cincinnati football roster. But why we watch sports is so you can see that game and have someone prove who's the better team. That's why the Michigan-Ohio State game is fun every single year. It's the rivalry. You have to prove it. Whatever you do for the rest of that season doesn't matter. You play in that game, and that decides who's the better team. And that's despite the rosters. That's despite everything that's happened in that year, despite what you go on to do, to winning a national championship. If Ohio State beats Michigan last year, and Michigan still wins the national championship, there's still a sour taste in their mouth. Not obviously they won a championship and they'd still be happy, but at the end of the day, it still matters. And that's why I think there is a little bit of animosity towards college football, is because that notion that we're better than you because on paper we're better than you, and we don't have to prove it because it's a waste of all of our time. That kind of attitude is why I just haven't been a fan of college football. Now, my opinion on this is why I wanted this 12-team playoff, and it's going to be shot down, or my point's going to be proven right in the next couple of years with this 12-team playoff. Because you're going to see an Alabama team play a team that they probably wouldn't have played if there weren't this 12-team playoff with everybody playing their starters and yada, yada, yada. And I think it's going to prove a lot. Could it come out and say that the top 4 seeds every single year are going to dismantle every 5 through 12 seed they play? 100% that could be true. Or what you're going to find is perhaps that maybe these upsets can happen.
Like a Cinderella type, March Madness type of vibe.
And then maybe you can look back at the past several years and say, all right, maybe teams weren't given a fair shot at winning a championship.
But that's the thing about college football that's always cracked me up, is there was never, this 14 playoff was never about fair. It was always about the anger, being pissed off, well, this team should have made it because of this. In fact, if anything, I've always thought that the committee got bailed out more times than not. There was always these scenarios of, my God, are they really going to keep this team out? Are they actually going to keep this team out?
The first and the last playoff
were the most
only
controversial.
2 where there was legitimate argument, because the Big 12 didn't have a championship game in 2014.
Yep.
So Ohio State got in over 1-loss TCU and 1-loss Baylor just because they won the Big Ten championship, and those 2 teams didn't even play. And then obviously this year with undefeated Florida State. But yeah, more often than not, it worked itself out, and there wasn't the pushback. The loudest pushback was a 2-loss Penn State team that got left out for a 1-loss team, and a 2-loss Ohio State team that got left out for an undefeated UC. Those are the 2 loudest.
And
snubs.
even then, that Ohio State season, they had beat top 10 Nebraska. They had beat top 10 Wisconsin. They beat Michigan that year, obviously. I think who did they play? That was the Oklahoma year. They beat Baker Mayfield in Oklahoma that year. So they had like a big out-of-conference win. They had those 3 top 10 wins, but they lost to Penn State, who would go on to win the Big Ten championship. That was controversial, but you could at least see the blueprint as to why Ohio State still got in, right? But that Cincinnati year, I so badly wanted Ohio State to beat Michigan that year for obvious reasons. I so badly wanted them to beat Michigan that year because, Elliot, what would they have done? You had an undefeated American Conference champion team in Cincinnati who was a great story all season. But if Ohio State only had one loss and they're a Big Ten champion or whatever, like I still think again, regardless of Ohio State versus Cincinnati, like how that would have worked. Ohio State would have got in over
100%.
Cincinnati. People would have lost their mind.
UC still wasn't in towards that. After they won their final game against Houston, they still went in. You still needed Oklahoma State to lose.
UC was a quarter inch away from missing that playoff.
Oh, yeah. Oklahoma State would have knocked UC right out.
Went for 2 and dove and missed the pylon by literally this much, and UC got in the playoff.
And that went back to your point. It all just kind of took care of itself.
Right.
And I hate that. I didn't want it to take care of itself. That's why I kind of liked the drama last year with the Florida State thing. But, like, that was like now the 12-team playoff, Florida State gets in, everyone's happy. I think you're going to lose a little of that urgency and that appeal for the playoff. But the playoff was never built, to be fair, in the 4-team. You have 5 power conferences, but 4 slots. Like, it was created. That's why everyone's like, man, this is why this playoff format didn't work. No, this is just what they wanted. They only got it twice, though. Jason Fitz, who will be on with us throughout the football season, he was when he was with ESPN, he was on the mock committee for the playoff to build a playoff or whatever. So the entire college football playoff committee had basically walked them through exactly what they look for. And the whole reason that they liked the 14 playoff format was because people talked about it. People were angry. People were upset about it as far as that's concerned. But, all right, we're out of time here today, at least on the radio side. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Shout out to Solomon Wilcots. Appreciate him, former Bengal. Was awesome enough to give us some time today. If you missed that, we'll have that posted up on Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, so go and check that out. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench on 1410 ESPN Radio. Not leaving early. I'm still here.
You're still here.
I'm still here.
Mark says everybody's going to complain about the 13th spot. And this is where I agree with Jacob. If you're the 13th team and you complain, sorry, you lose. Don't complain. You don't need to complain. I know the school will complain that's 13th and they get left out with 4 losses. But at the end
what happens when 13 is 11-1 UC?
I don't think
And you have 2 and 3 lost teams ahead of them from power conferences.
Yeah, if it's UC, like I said, if it's
bad example just because you're a fan. I'm saying if it's a group of 5 team that has a better record than the teams ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean,
and yes, I think that will happen.
I think it'll happen, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to feel sorry for you because you still had the opportunity to control your own destiny against another group of 5 team. Right, or a non-power conference team.
Yeah, you'd be
because
right.
the highest one of those makes the playoff.
Yeah, you're right.
So you got to be better than them. If they go undefeated, you got to go undefeated. It's just one of those things. It makes sense to me how you can get in. There's no scenario where like if undefeated Tulane last year stayed undefeated, would they have made it? I don't know because there's still biases towards the Power 5 conferences. But this year, if Tulane goes undefeated, I know they're in. And that's, I think, the difference. Will people complain? Sure. The teams, the fans of their school, individual school, will 100% complain if they miss out. But to the rest of the world and to me, that's where you lose me. I don't care any longer.
I think the big point of contention with the new playoff format is going to be the difference between that 4th and 5th conference champion. Because the top 4 conference champions get the first round bye, and the 5th conference champion has to play that first round game. Granted, at home, it'll be on their college campus at home with their fans. So obviously not sending them to a bowl game or something like that. But I think that difference between a bye week after a 12-game season and a 13-game season, because you've now played your conference championship and presumably won it, getting that bye week is a massive difference from having to play another game against a top 12 team in the country.
Yep.
This isn't a cupcake. This isn't going to be some easy game. These are playoff teams at that point. I think we're going to see a big point of contention there because, like, last year, for example, 12-team playoff. Sure, Florida State gets in, but they don't get that bye. Alabama's the 4th-ranked Power 5 teams. And who knows if they would have done it the same way. I'm just using the rankings they put out for the 4-team playoff. Alabama with a loss gets that first bye, being a conference champion, being the higher-ranked conference champion. And now Florida State doesn't get to the Elite Eight because, hypothetically they lose with their backup quarterback or whatever, and then you have that debate. So I think the debates just move. I don't know that it's necessarily 5 versus 4, 13 versus 12 like it was in this. I think it's going to be more about where the teams are situated within the rankings. And
that's
like Notre Dame is a huge question for me because they could go 12-0, be the number 1 team in the country. The highest they can be ranked is 5.
That's crazy.
Right.
Let me ask you this. What seed will be the lowest or I guess highest, the worst seed to win a championship over the next, let's say, 5 years?
I think I would ask the question a different way. I think you should ask who's the worst team. Because what happens when like a 9-3 Alabama wins a championship?
Yeah.
As the 10 seed. Like, is that really that much of an upset?
Yeah, because right now history.
I wonder how long till a group of 5 team gets to the Final Four.
Because there was the history of the
I think
14 playoff.
I don't think they.
You got to win 2 games.
They struggle to
it
get.
Tough. It would be almost impossible.
They struggle to get 4 good quality teams
Right.
every year. So that's why the big pushback about the 12 was, I mean, we think 4 teams to win a national championship, but there were many years where it was like you knew 1 and 2, and half the time you knew who was going to win it to begin with. Whether it was those really good Georgia teams, that Alabama, Ohio State type team. Outside of that, it was tough. That 4th team, more times than not, was always getting obliterated. I know the 4th seed won the national title game on a couple occasions, but yeah, like that 5th seed, you're right though. Like those seeds are going to be moved around a little bit because of that. You talked about. I'm glad you brought up the fact that the argument. I don't think the argument's going to be about the 13 team being left out. It's going to be who's the bias of the SEC being with ESPN now. Like, Ohio State, they should be. Like you talked about here, but because the ESPN wants Alabama to win a national championship, they're going to flip-flop them and give Alabama the home game, and this, that, and the other. I think it'll just be that type of thing, as far as that's concerned. But I do hope there are some passionate arguments with college football because I still think it ruined the regular season. I don't think that these games matter as much now. I don't think that we'll be as not excited, but I don't think when the playoff rankings come out, I don't think we're going to care as much. I don't even know how that's going to work, the playoff rankings. You just take the team that's ahead right now and put them in. Do you only release the rankings for the –
So the rankings do not correlate with the seeding in the tournament.
That's what I mean. So, like, do the rankings even matter at that point?
Yes, because it's the top-ranked group of 5 or Power Conference champions, the top-ranked group of 5 teams. So where you stand on the rankings matter, but you could be ranked 20.
Yep.
And make the playoff. So it's gonna take a while, a couple releases to get used to looking at it in a new light as opposed to just the number next to the name. But it's pretty interesting.
I think you're right in the fact that, especially for teams like Georgia and Ohio State, that regular season games will mean less right now. But as college football starts to evolve and you start to see the Big Ten become a super conference and the SEC become a super conference, it's all going to work itself out. Not to mention, I think the games this year, the playoff games, will be the most fun games we've had. And not just because how close they are, yada, 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 because we're going to see home playoff
It's
games.
going to be incredible.
So that's the part of this where I think it makes everything worth it.
My gripe with college football for so long has been that we play a 12-week, 13-week season at just the most beautiful stadiums in sports, some of the greatest locations that any sport in America has, and then you end the season in a metal box in Houston that was built in 2020. It's like play these games at the stadiums that make this sport what it is. I mean, this video game comes out and everyone's clamoring to play because you finally get the presentation of the stadiums and the traditions, and that's what this first round being at home will have. Sure, you can watch these guys win a championship in Houston or in SoFi or in Lucas Oil, and that's all great and dandy. Championships all work the same, but I think the more and more we infuse college football's great stadiums into the playoff atmosphere, the better it'll get.
Let me ask you this. Will you see opt-outs if you're a high-ranked recruit, right? Let's say, I don't know, you're going projected 1 in the draft, 3 in the draft, 5 in the draft, and you have the 4 seed or the 5 seed, I guess, and you're playing that 12 or wherever you'd be playing. Are you going to see a sit-out in that game? And then move on to the next game, and they'll just wait until you play somebody good and worth your time.
I don't think we'll ever see opt-outs in the playoff. I do think we could see a team get up 14-20 and pull their starters. I think that's definitely feasible, but I don't think we'll ever see opt-outs in a playoff game. But just like we saw when we went from 2 to 4, opt-outs grew. If
Yeah.
you missed the 4-team playoff, you opted out of your bowl game if you were 5, 6, or 7, basically.
Yep.
Now, if you're not in the 12-team playoff, I would expect every first-round pick to opt out.
100%.
I mean, you have such a big chance, such a big pool gets into the playoff to compete for a national championship. If you're a first-round pick, if you're a locked-in first-round pick, I'd be shocked if you're playing in bowl games outside of the playoff, which is partially why I was against the 12-team playoff. You just continue to diminish the meaning of the other games outside of those 6.
Yeah, bowl games mean nothing. You talk about meaning nothing. They mean nothing now. 0.
All right. Kinder and Kev show. Sorry, Kinder and Kev show is coming up next. Technically in Dayton.
There you go.
There's that. That's how I got
From
out
what
of that.
time is that?
3:00. So not next, but
Okay.
next later today. Off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Shout out to Solomon Wilcots. We'll do this again tomorrow on time, and if not, it won't be my fault. I'll be here bright and early to make sure we're ready to go.
Fair enough.
10:00. Until tomorrow, it's been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers.